And we're back. We're back. Hey, so it's October. It's wrestling season. It is finally here.
Let's go.
Yeah, dude. The best time of year. Let's rock and roll. Lots of cool stuff going on. We leave tomorrow for P&L, headed up for regionals to Indiana. Going to be a ton of people at that, actually. A lot of the new programs are going to be there, which is going to be fire. Meeting of the Minds. It's going to be sick. We got a lot of guys traveling, and then next month we have P&L National. So lots of folks getting ready for Super 32, which is another week away. But man, we're all in on this P&L stuff, and this has been unbelievable. I'm so excited to go hang out with some of our people. It's just awesome, dude. Meeting of the Minds. MJ, you got anything to add? What's up, dude?
I saw you just finished up a workout with the guys. How was that?
Man, it was great. We've been really leaning in our daytime stuff. Some of our full-time athletes who've decided to homeschool and train. It's just been unbelievably cool. They're getting like really a full view of kind of what it looks like, behind the scenes, and they get to see that, which I think they're fascinated by. Devotional stuff. We're seeing them like really 360 grow and get better. That's been awesome. The training has been phenomenal just because it's unlocked some more time without as many distractions. There's not that same bottleneck, and it's been super, super cool. Hey, listen, I got to interrupt. If you haven't gone and seen the Ryobi ad that my man shot, go watch it right now.
A lot of sound effects.
A lot of sound effects. We shot the coolest vid this past week. We're working on some brand deals, some brand partnerships where, dude, I mean, we market hard work around here. It's like you're selling hard work, really, really, really hard work, diet, discipline to kids who don't have money. And you're trying to sell their parents on, what about that is, where the limit is on how much money they should be spending. And so you have to get pretty good at marketing if you're selling such a bad product, right? Like we're selling perseverance around here, discipline and perseverance. And so we've low-key gotten really good at marketing, and we've been working on brand partnership stuff with some companies that need help selling their products that we're like authentic users of or that we believe in, and also some larger companies who could partner with us on our nonprofit side and just grease the wheels. We believe that wrestling training is the vehicle for people who actually want to better themselves. It's not a handout. We're not giving them anything for free except the opportunity to train really, really, really hard and ultimately change their lives, take control of their life. So that's been super cool. And Ryobi is one that we're reaching out to. Shot that vid this past week. It was awesome. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch that right now. My man's doing some sick work behind the camera. And
Michael John Media, what's up?
Yeah, get it, my guy, Michael John Media. Okay, so that's been fun. Okay, so what's prompted today's call? So we're running our podcast today is about all things training, and this is really important because it's wrestling season, and we keep having these conversations like every single day. We get a couple of these every day. We get these DMs, and it's coaches that everybody's kind of looking at what we're doing. They're kicking the tires. They're like, man, I kind of like, that sounds right. Well, and well, I already do this and I do that, but I heard you said this thing too. And like, we get it, man. Everybody's training. Everybody's doing their thing. And we're not trying to beat somebody up. We're not trying to say that people don't have anything out there that's good. Like everybody's doing something well. And there's probably things we can learn from you, but we're so far down the rabbit hole on just a better way, a higher value way, smarter ways to do the same work that we're doing and get better results, scale them, right? So you can go deeper with your athletes, or you can go wider and reach more people, or you can just have less pain and suffering like along the way. And so it's weird though, because it's a new category. And so we want to talk a lot about that. And honestly, at the time we're shooting this, I think Jason Nolf shot a video. They've got Athletes Ocean going on, which we're excited about. And he put out a video that just speaks to the heart of a lot of the issues with coaches and what they need and why they need it. And they're starting to put some stuff out. And I guess in a way we could look at that and say, hey, those guys are competitors or whatever, but they're just not. They're not really competitors.
Right.
And in fact, I'm really excited that they're putting out that stuff because those guys have the following to move the needle on this issue a little bit, right? And so there's some things that we do that are very unique. All roads are headed towards, hey, you've got to have these systems. You got to have all this stuff. If you look at any football program. This is already happening. And so we're just waiting on the rabbit hole. But we want to talk about some of the stuff that we're doing just as like an offering, because we're getting coaches who DM us and say, hey, man, we're a little interested. We do this and this. What do you think? What do you recommend? And so we're just going to put it all on the table. Word? I mean, that's the best thing. I'm tired of I don't want to try to sell people. Dude, what we're doing is awesome. It's so much fun. And we are authentic users of the thing. And our vision for what we're trying to do is 10 years of this stuff. We've been working on it really hard for 6, and it's just this iterative process. Why is that so hard to say? Iterative process, my southern vernacular. And so this iterative process to make it all better. And we've there's just growing stuff. There's business stuff. You have to grow in software stuff, delivery stuff, skill, all in making what is inside our brains and putting it out in a way that everybody else can consume it and do well with it. So,
yeah. So like you said, we're getting a ton of messages, different coaches from all over the country just messaging us. And they all are kind of asking pretty much the same thing. So in your own words, what is Ironclad Methods? If someone came in here for the first time and is just trying to inquire about what we do, how would you tell them what is Ironclad Methods?
Ironclad Methods is our online wrestling training platform. And there's a ton of stuff inside there, but quite simply, all short, it's our online wrestling training platform available to people all over the world.
So why do you think, why is Methods important to coaches, athletes, and programs?
So we're all doing the same thing. Every coach, it's one coach or 2 coaches, and you're far outnumbered with your team. And so we kind of get stuck in the trenches of coaching, right? And there's these really intimate, these close relationships with your athletes, right? Because it's 1-to-1 and you're in the trenches. It feels like I just think of a general in the trenches with his soldiers in World War I or something. It's and that's kind of what coaching is. And that's why there's those strong bonds, strong relationships. But we're not using technology or philosophy or a lot of the best science to get more done, right? We're just not doing that. And so we are obsessed with taking what are all the best training ways? What is the highest value thing we can be doing, right? Or getting rid of all the confusion, all the gray area, and trying to make it a little more objective, helping to understand through a logical and philosophical approach how we can be doing the highest value work every hour so that whoever you are, wherever you are, you can empower yourself and your athletes to accomplish whatever it is that they really want, and that you get to be the champion of that. If you're a coach, then you get to be the champion of that information. If you're a parent, then you can know that your athletes are equipped, and you don't have to, they don't have to have the frustration of they're getting pinned and they don't know why, or they can't stop a move or whatever. So we can just get rid of a lot of the low level things. The word says move on from our childish understanding. And so we can move on to deeper levels of understanding, higher level conversation about training and equipping our athletes.
So what are some problems you saw in your own program that required you to kind of develop these methods?
So the first real thing that I was chasing was vertically aligning the program. So we didn't even coach youth kids when we started. It was all middle school, high school guys, just a few middle schoolers and all high school. And I started realizing, well, we're just spending all of our time correcting bad habits. So all their bad wrestling stuff. And so what if we go ahead, if we want to, instead of correcting what's wrong, what if we just go ahead and plant what's right? So that started us in the youth thing. And then I started realizing I was just trying to find this way to hack coaching youth kids. So then you start to understand child development, and you start to understand that you need progressions. So it started with vertically aligning the program so that kids could grow up in the system. Then I started figuring out that they needed a progression so that, the kid that's, if you're 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, those are different stages of child development. They've got different levels of motor skills, proprioception, all these things. And so you have to be developing them as an athlete and then giving them tools that work at their level, right? And so you can't treat the kid who's 10 like the kid that's 16. They're not the same. Right. And if you do, he's going to, there's a lot of churn if you do. And two, when he gets to be 14, 15, 16, he's not going to be listening anymore because you've already shot all your bullets, so to speak. And so you need this progressive system all the way through. So those were two. That's kind of where it started, and then it just really once you open that door and you walk into that room and you start looking at what are some better ways to do this, and you're not, instead of looking around for someone else who's doing it in your space, if you start looking in other industries, right? So other sports, other businesses, like literally other industries, you start to see there's a lot of fundamental ideas that are super applicable, right? And so Dr. Mark Bubbs calls that being an expert generalist. And when you reach the edge of innovation in your field, there's another great book on where innovation comes from, and talks about how you have to start looking everywhere else to develop the next adjacent possible. And so that's led to all, I mean, we're looking at a stack of books here. Outliers help me understand and overcome, honestly, a lot of the imposter syndrome that we had, because I was like, dude, we're in Alabama. Why are we the ones figuring this out? Which, by the way, shout out, dude, I have my 2005 Alabama wrestling shirt on.
Vintage right there.
This thing, look, dude, it's got holes in it. I'm sure this was from being around a bonfire.
That's so funny.
Pretty positive it was my dad's, but
throwback.
Little throwback. Legit retro. My wife was like, why are you wearing that shirt with holes in it? I was like, this shirt is a trophy. Okay. Like,
a grail,
don't you, how dare you? How
That's
dare
hilarious.
you? This is an 81 Honda. How dare you? So yeah, there's a lot of outliers. Each one of these books has at least one or many ideas that are contributing factors into the way that we approach this thing, right? And so I was roommates in, I guess, Budapest, or I don't know, one of the countries that we were in. I was roommates with Amit Allur's coach. Valentin. Thank you. I was roommates with Valentin, and he was talking to me about how he's from Ukraine, and he has a degree in coaching, and how different it is in Russia and all this stuff, and how there's not like a real wrestling coaching degree in America. And it's a pretty fascinating idea. And I was trying to explain to him that, like, yeah, I'm kind of on this quest to do this, right? Like, how do we find all the things that are actually relevant in our field and do that? And so these books are like the education, and there's a whole lot more that don't fit in the stack here, right? But they each represent an idea that is a contributing factor. And so we're completely reimagining, rethinking what wrestling training looks like in a way that makes more sense. And so, we put out a video a couple years ago about how we're trying to CrossFit revolutionize CrossFit revolutionized the fitness industry, and gyms look different now because of CrossFit. Like when you walk in a gym, there's rubber mats and barbells and squat racks and a rig, pull-up bars everywhere. And that is a very different look than what had become the classic, Globo gym, right? And different gyms have influenced that, right? Now I'm saying Globo gym, the 24Es of the world and stuff now, right? But those kind of got birthed out of a lot of the gyms out of the 90s and 2000s that were really successful, and CrossFit changed that. So now even if you go in a Lifetime Fitness, it looks like Globo Gym, but then there's an area that looks like CrossFit space in there. And so we're trying to standardize wrestling training in a way that just, not to mandate that it has to be done this way, but there's just more sharing of ideas, right? And integrating the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, the judo, the MMA, like all those things. We've been in the trenches training all that stuff, and they all have true ideas that are relevant.
I love what you said about being a general specialist. Since you told me about that idea, I've been kind of obsessed with it. I remember at the state tournament, I think 4 years ago, we were talking, and I remember I was asking you about jiu-jitsu. I hadn't tried it yet, but was obviously intrigued because, I mean, you've gained so much knowledge from this sport and, like, interpolated it back into, like, wrestling fundamentals. And so, yeah, we see guys like Jason Knopf and Athletes Ocean, like they've kind of already figured this out. So what would you say is like a common misconception that like other people or other coaches have about methods?
So I think you said a lot of really good things there. Number one, I think that so I knew that Nolf was obviously spending some time doing some jiu-jitsu while he was still competing at Penn State. It looked to me like he was doing it because he was taking a few movements that are fundamental skills in jiu-jitsu, and it looked like he was starting to integrate them in wrestling, right? And that's where things like the Nolf roll and Winn-Dixie and some of those things start coming from. And so as he got into grappling, I knew like he's going to be a place where people see a lot of this innovation come to life because he's still competing, right? And so when you see it happen in a match, you go, oh, like, wait a minute, this is obviously works. Okay, so I think number one, the thing that wrestling coaches, so that kind of leads into what you're asking, is where a thing with wrestling coaches that a real barrier in believing in an idea is that you don't ever really get baptized in it, right? We're just having a debate with words. And if we're comparing our athletes, then it's not a good experiment because we're not using the same athletes. Like whatever you're doing and whatever like I'm doing or the next coach is doing, we're not comparing the same athletes, right? So if like this kid, when in Alabama, I could see this a lot where I'm like, hey, we have this kid who's been wrestling for a year and this kid's been wrestling 4 years and we beat him. And it's like, ooh, and by the way, we don't like train nearly as hard as that kid. It's just this intelligent approach. So like it's easier to see that a little more on like a local level, okay? But in terms of coaching, if we're doing jiu-jitsu, if we're grappling and I say that MJ shows me a technique and I'm like, that's stupid, I don't believe in that. Like, actually, that's dumb. Well, when you submit me with it, I'm like, okay, he just caught me because I didn't like respect it. You know, like, okay, that was stupid, but I'm not going out like that again. And then you do it to me again and again and again. If you submit me 2 or 3 or 4, even once really, but like, especially if you can do it on repeat, I get baptized in that idea. And now I'm forced to believe, I'm forced to accept that that's true. And then I start to have to consider the merits of what you were saying, right? So in wrestling, because we're not really testing it against each other, you don't have to believe in what I'm doing, right? And there's such a feel component of it. And so that's why I try to like cite all of our sources. And we get coaches who say, hey, I appreciate that you've cited your source where you learned this and whatever, right? But so I think the first thing is that like, hey, it's not that this can't work. There's just a way to progress. And if someone is offering you something better, it's not to say that what you did wasn't good. It's just let's keep growing, right? So I think this growth mindset and not being fixed is a real thing, as a real narrative. I think not believing in a foreign idea because you don't get baptized in it the same way that if you're actively grappling, you do. Right. And there's no expectation that like Nick Saban doesn't have to be able to guard the receivers, right? Like there's no expectation that the coach has to be able to wrestle and beat the athletes or whatever. But in playing with it, you can feel the merit. So I think that's a big thing is that because a lot of wrestling coaches aren't still active grapplers themselves, they miss it a little bit. And then there's just like a huge pride factor like in men. It's just a really rampant thing. And it's been done this way a long time. And anytime you say this is the way it's been done, that's kind of that should be a huge red flag of like, hey, there's really some mistakes here, right? So there's so much. Let's yeah, I mean that's an endless thing.
Yeah. So yeah, you talk a lot about reps within reps. What are some training resources unique to Ironclad, and how do those allow athletes to get those reps within reps?
Okay, so Dr. Rob Gray talks about this a lot, and I like how he simplifies it. He's got a couple books over here, I think, or maybe they're at home, but he talks about, again, he simplifies this really long, deep, expansive thing to say reps within reps. So in wrestling terms, we usually think about getting a rep as I got the right result, and if I got a takedown, then it works, right? And so what you really want, is you want to get the same result, the same pathway, right? Okay. The inner game of tennis talks a lot about that in the way when you're myelinating, which means you're learning. The science of learning is called myelination when you're developing a new skill. So you want to travel the same path. You need the exact same groove that you're sanding over and over and over again in terms of learning. And so if you can understand that there's this really narrow path, okay, shout out to the Bible who first said that, okay, there's this really narrow path that is learning, okay, and you can learn. Let's say you could learn one thing 12 different ways, or you could learn one thing 12 times, right? And so that's the idea, is that we want to find what is pure, what is true about a certain technique or a certain skill, and then we figure out where all does that apply. And so we use this idea of multiplication. Listen, I got in a conversation with a guy the other day in a class, and he was talking about single legs, and I was like, here's 14 single legs. And we just were like, go, 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 go. Showed him all to him, and he was like, oh, there is a lot more to this than I thought. I was like, right. So we say do it this way because this is the purest version, and then you could deviate from that. And there's always going to be a little deviation. But by the way, if you learn it this way, this also pairs with our underhook. This pairs with all these other positions that you're going to get in that have the same recipe of muscle fibers and that are activated, that are on and off. It's the same blend, the same recipe that creates feel. So by having pure skills, reps within reps, the rep within, you start to stack that all the time. So you learn this one thing can be reinforced everywhere. And so you can literally develop more feel faster than someone else who's just aimlessly, they're getting the right result, single leg, but they're not getting it the right way, right? And so if you pick the weight up, that doesn't necessarily equal success, I don't think. Or if it does, you're risking health as you start to lift more and more and more weight. Eventually, if you're doing a clean and jerk, there's like very specific deadlift technique. There's very specific hang clean technique. There's a very specific squatting technique to clear under the bar. And then there's a front squat to the top. And then there's a jerk at the top, again at the top. And so it's subdivided. This compound movement is subdivided into like smaller skills. And if you understand how to train weightlifting, again, I'm like nerding talking about this, but if you start to subdivide those skills, you can train them all intentionally. But then you also have to have a map to help understand so you don't get lost in the weeds. So you have to have this order of priority, which is what we do with the triangles, right? Like it helps us to map the priority of a position. And so we can spend time where it matters most on the large rocks and then work our way down to the details. We can use it to map dilemmas so that it doesn't matter if you choose A or B, like you lose. We can use it to write programming for coaches. We can use it to speed up thinking so that the athletes can think faster, right? We can get to the end of the rabbit hole. We can dig and mine for information. We come back to the very surface and then give everybody some counsel and say, hey, we're going to work on these three because they all go together in this way. So we can find techniques that are more closely related, which make them more fatal. They're more lethal, I should say, in terms of offense. So you develop these run pass option type ideas. You can map it all out so you can understand where you have blind spots. Like this triangle, the triangles are literally a measuring tape. I mean, so like this is crazy. Check this. So this is a board that I got at the local sporting goods store, right? And so I bought it. It's $20, right? Mountain Brick Sporting Goods. Thanks so much. Okay, so it's got the field on one side, right, and then on the other side you've got your players here, and they have these for football, for basketball. They have them for soccer, and it's just like a standard thing. It comes with a marker. You buy it at the store. We don't have anything like this in wrestling, right?
We don't have that visual asset.
So we created it, right? When you lose, everybody says you're going to go back to the drawing board, but there's not a freaking drawing board. So we created one, and we use these in practice all the time. You can write notes on the back. We can map everything out. Like this is it's a measuring tape in the hands of a wrestler, okay? And so what does a measuring tape do in the construction world? You can do whatever you want with it. It's the standard. Like it's how we standardize what we're doing. And so we created that, right? And so what we're trying to do is teach people how to use this tool, because with it, you can make better wrestling, right? You can, and what's crazy is the higher level you are, I think the more value that you're going to find in it, right? When you're learning, it seems like anything is possible. Anything makes progress. But when you start getting really, really good, when you're a black belt, like progress is few and far in between, and you start to look for really tiny gains to fill that progress. And so when you've been wrestling for 20 years and then you start drawing out your understanding of a single leg on this card, and then you find like 4 holes in it and improve in 30 minutes, that is a light bulb moment. You go, oh, wow, this is different.
You it's like hitting, like you say, instead of like aiming for that marble, you start hitting a basketball. You really can concentrate on like this is the read, this guy's in this position, this technique's open.
It is insane. And so there's like, we mapped out front headlock stuff on our pro call this past week, right? So we've got an online platform. So just everybody understands, we have a couple ways. Like there's an online platform. You can have a monthly membership or you can pay for the year.
Ironclad Methods.
Ironcladmethods.com. Go check it out. Okay. It costs you like 75 cents a day, I think, for one of those memberships. Okay. We have another one that's about $25 a week. Our mentor, who we built this platform on, they host it. They do all the stuff. They've helped us do it. They understand how much work it is. The guy wrestled, like he gets it. He's like, this is worth $400 or $500 a month. And I was like, there's no way on earth that we can do that. Like, and in the world of business, you go, yeah, well, high ticket, go get college programs that'll pay that money for this because it's that valuable. And you can actually help these Division I programs. And I was like, yeah, I know that's true, but they don't think that yet. Right. And so we've slowly ran it down and we're making it accessible to everybody. It's $100 a month. Like there's no reason, not because it's not worth $500 a month, not because it's not $25,000 of value for your program. It's because like we can do it for that. And so
this is the pro call.
This is our pro call. Yeah. I'm just going fast because I'm excited, but it's so literally we've made this crazy innovative stuff that we're so excited about. I'm not trying to I'm not beefing this up. Like this is real. Okay. I'm excited because I'm a nerd about wrestling and grappling and giving it to people that want help. They all want help. You go to a tournament, everyone loses, everybody wants help, and they don't know where they get help.
Right.
You just like, dude, take this tool home with you and learn how to use it. Okay. And so through Ironclad Methods, we have our pro program is $25 a week. And we do I think we bill it monthly or whatever. Like, I don't even freaking know. Okay. Like we've run this call every week. This past week, we broke down a front headlock and I showed, we drew it all out and we have this like mind map of all the ways and all the body parts you could use in a front headlock and all. It's like the deepest study on a front headlock ever. So we broke that all down on the pro call and I mean, yeah, it's there. It's recorded. Like anybody can go get it, right? And so, but it's crazy because in studying this stuff and using all these tools, it speeds up your learning, right? Like we're learning more faster every single day, and we're just trying. Learning it's not linear. It's parabolic, like right. It's exponential, right? Parabolic would be crashing and going the other way, but it's exponential. And so we're on that curve, and it's running up fast. And we're just trying to get this stuff in the tools of people that want it, right? Another crazy thing that's important is, hey, like, listen, we're not that down the rabbit hole. Like, we're just trying to get a couple of these fundamental things right? There's a lot of those guys out there. Hey, us too. We're not in some ivory tower. There's this illusion that we have kids that like all come in, they're really good. Like none of our kids have wrestled when they show up, or if they did, they wrestled at the local high school and they're like pretty terrible. They have a lot of really bad habits. Yeah. They're really used to wrestling bad wrestlers. And so they have, we have all the same kids just like you do. Okay. And so, we start a couple hundred kids a year in wrestling from day one, we always say day one to D1, right? And so, for those new people, coaches have the same type problems. They need to on-ramp people, right? And so I learned about this when I was looking at like corporate wellness programs and stuff in COVID. I was doing some work with a friend, and I just got like totally red-pilled on ramping new employees, right? Every business does this. In the corporate wellness program, they've assigned a dollar value. They found that you get a 328% return on every dollar that you spend on your employees. Okay, so let's translate that to wrestling. It would be a 328% return for every dollar that you spend on your athletes, right? In terms of just providing them access to quality training. If you just give them access, not if you make them watch it, not if you force them, you just give them access. Corporate wellness gives them access to this fundamental information. And what happens, it starts to on-ramp your new people because new people have all the questions. They require the most time. They need the most help, and they make the most mistakes. Not because they're flawed, not because they're bad people, because they don't know.
Right.
And so when you give them tools and resources to help them, and you on-ramp them, you've helped yourself. Because not only are you helping them, but they're not going to require as much as your time as a coach and everything else.
Right.
And without it, you will get like, they become a burden. You get like bitter. Like someone starting wrestling, instead of you being excited about it, that this person joined your program late, you're like, oh, they missed the parent meeting, they missed this, they're not plugged in.
Yeah.
there's all these frustrating things when really we should be celebrating that. We should be excited. This kid just started wrestling, no different than a person who just like gave their life to Jesus, right? Like we should be celebrating that, not burdened by it. And so we're obsessed. All of our resources are around building culture. You have to, Peter Drucker says culture eats strategy for breakfast. Most of us don't live in wrestling culture. That's the exception, not the rule. And so you have to immerse everyone so they can live in wrestling culture, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. We're obsessed with that in our own program, and we realize that if we need it, we're not going to gatekeep it all. We got to give it to everybody else too. And so we make that literally as affordable as possible. We can provide a way higher level service and save you money, right? I had a coach. You didn't ask this, but I had a coach, and he was asking me all the things this past week. We're helping this coach specifically with all things wrestling, and I was explaining how camps are great. I love camps because you can go and you can provide an experience, and you get it's kind of an ignition moment. Daniel Coyle, author of he's got a couple of books over here. Daniel Coyle would talk about it. He calls it an ignition moment, where there's that spark and you light a fire for a person. So camps are amazing for that, or a clinic when you bring somebody in, but they're crazy expensive. And if you are just bringing somebody in and you're willing to pay the money for them to come in and just light a fire and ignite everybody, then do that, right? That's kind of like a weekend getaway for your business or for your family when you go to a conference and you get excited. That's what those camps and clinics do. But if you just want the information, you want the training, you want to really equip your team, it's the worst way to do it because, number one, it's really expensive. It requires the most time. And so we use the parable of drinking water out of a fire hydrant to explain that. When we come in to do a camp, you're drinking water out of a fire hydrant, but you have to pay for all the water, not what you drink. And so when we show up and do a camp, and my friend Greg Jeffco, we went down there and we're doing camps with him a couple years in a row, would have these huge numbers, and we're just so excited about starting wrestling and growing culture in South Alabama, which is on fire and growing and so cool. But we would be trying to give them all the tools that these kids needed to be successful, but there's so much they need to learn. You're trying to force feed them some more water, and they're like, hey, man, I'm actually just ready to like wrestle live or do dodgeball or something else, right? They're not ready to learn anymore because there's so much going on. And that's not those kids' fault. Like, that's totally normal. That's human, right? But no amount of willingness or desire by coaches, clinician, anyone, or no amount of money would get them that information. They've got to have a little trickle of the information and put it in their hands. And so that's what Methods does. You can trickle and study the positions that you need help with. So kid loses a match. He keeps getting pinned. He's like, Coach, you're like, hey, man, you know how to defend a cradle? No, Coach, I don't know what that, or do you know what that move was even called? Like, these are super white belt questions, right? But we all have white belts on our team. So kid loses, and you're like, hey, listen, that move's called a cow catcher, or that was a headlock, right? No, listen, you need to go get in Methods, and you need to there's three really good ways to defend that headlock. Let's go look at a couple of them. You can find those in the bottom defensive playbook.
The worst time to coach your athlete is right after they just lost. Like, they're not listening, they're not remembering what you said.
No, they're so emotional, they're worked up. And some kids, if they're under control, they've got emotional control, they're willing to listen.
Right.
But when a kid's emotionally charged, that's not the time to listen. Don't put him on the mat and show him. Like, that's not it, dude. That is not the way, right? But if you can say, hey, listen, this is what we need to do. Or you can talk to this kid's dad who's super frustrated in the stands because he thinks that his kid losing somehow reflects on his own status. You just say, hey, Mr. Jimmy, what we need to do is, listen, he just needs access to some of this training. There's some stuff there. He just needs to go watch it on his own time. Don't force feed him, but if he wants to get a little better, here's how you do it. And you just empower them to have the success they want. And what happens is, these kids don't want to do homework, right? They don't want to do schoolwork because they don't care about that. They certainly care about wrestling. It's hard. They care about it. They're tired of getting their butt kicked, right? And so, like, dude, there's a short, quick, and loud feedback loop. When I lost this week, and then I went home and I learned how to defend that thing, and then the next time someone else tries to do that, and I stop it. And not only did I stop it, but then maybe I even turn them and pin them with this other cool thing that I learned.
And yeah, for sure. When you see a technique that you're like, if I had known this in this match, Like it's like it releases like a little boost of like serotonin.
Oh, it's so exciting, dude.
Like you get so addicted to getting better, and you just hand them.
You just equip them. You give them,
Right,
you're like, hey, here's a
right.
water fountain that you can have all the time. And it's crazy affordable. What? It's like your Netflix.
Exactly.
But it's going to change your kids' self-confidence. Like what? You're literally going to give them a place where they can learn how to study, do hard work, and get better. What could possibly be better than that?
Right.
It's like the greatest mission ever. I don't know why we're not doing it, right? We're obviously obsessed with it. We've spent the last 6 years building out all this stuff and iterating, and then we start figuring some parts out, and we're like, darn, like this is better. Let's nuke the old thing we did and do the new thing, right? And so that's kind of, I think that goes into the next thing is, why are we doing the pro call versus just putting out more courses? Because we were putting out courses and saying, this is great. But then 6 months or a year later, some coach asked a very specific question, and our advice to him would be like, well, on video 17, like he's hey, on video 17, you said this and yada, yada in this playbook. What do you think about this? And our advice would be, a year later or 2 years later, it's like, hey, actually, I would recommend doing it this way instead of that way. Here's why. And so it's important to understand the whole map, because you're not coming in with a blank slate and just teaching them everything. We've got to come alongside where you're at now and run the race together, right? So we have to retrace. So my advice based off of what he was saying, and I'm thinking of one specific example, for instance, was, hey, we've got to retrace back to where you guys are at in your understanding and then run the race together. And so what we would, if you're over here and we're standing here, like the advice we would give you is a little different to bring you back towards the middle versus, I'm not just going to say abandon post, stand here and do it this way. We want to bring you towards the center and on-ramp you slowly. And so that requires some question and answer. That requires ongoing study. And honestly, we're studying. We're doing this every single day, every week, every month, every year. And we want to encourage other people to do the same thing, right? Like we all read the same Bible. Boom, we all read it, okay? Shout out to the FCA for these awesome, the coach's Bible, the competitor's Bible, they're amazing. We all read the same book, okay? But we go to church every Sunday and listen to somebody like preach about something in that thing. We go for ongoing study. It's a prompt to study, a prompt to lean in, a prompt to learn more. Hopefully, you spend all week, you spend some time, some quiet time every day, and you read this thing a little bit, okay? Because it's going to speak to your soul. It's where you're really going to get better. Hopefully, you do some study on your own, okay? But if nothing else, you have access to the truth, okay? And so then the people who rise to the top are good communicators of of the truth, and they do it in a life-giving way. And so we want to empower good leaders so that there's not like some jackwagon of a coach that's a total jerk, or he's a prick to kids and verbally abusive, or whoever. The athletes know what happens in a wrestling room, right? We want to give them access to a better example and what the truth really looks like, so that they can be like, hey, that's not really it. That's missing the mark, right? And you don't do a deal with the devil, so to speak, right? You don't just go train with this coach that's a total jerk just because he's got some information that you want. We give everybody access to the information, right? Put all the truth online so that everybody has access to it, and then they can use it themselves, right? And what happens is it starts to weed out the bad apples. Like it starts to pull those guys out because they no longer thrive once everybody has access, right? You can't have a cult if everybody's got a Bible. Like they can all read what it says. And so it really has the ability to change the wrestling culture, which is a community that we obviously care the most about. And it just gets rid of so many bad things that I think many of us, and I know both of us have spoken about this a lot, it gets rid of so many bad parts of our wrestling culture that we know we need to improve. We need to shed some light on and get better at. And so we're just trying to have a weekly call to do that. We don't pretend to know everything. We don't. We're studying and getting better ourselves. But man, we've learned a lot about this. We've learned a lot, and we're eager to give it to people that want help. And we can do it at an insanely affordable price, and like literally, I mean, really give value. We can make a meaningful impact with your athlete, with you as a coach, or with your entire program, based off of kind of the different packages that you want to take advantage of. It's just like this crazy no-brainer. Yeah, it's just a big thing, man. It's such a big thing. we've done all this other stuff, technique cards, totally changing what practice structure looks like, using checklists and common language, and making it so that all the athletes in the room are empowered to communicate amongst each other, which has all these other accessory benefits, like these auxiliary gains that are just like so important that we would all agree with. We're just not actively doing it. And so as you start walking down this road, you realize, oh, wow, there's this benefit and this benefit and this benefit. And I often refer to Plato's allegory of the cave. Like once you know the way, once you've left the cave and you see the light, like there's no going back, right? I mean, I guess there's two kinds of people.
Even adjust.
Yeah, like I guess there are people that go back to the cave, but that is not our people, right? And so we're just trying to figure out how can we get this in the hands of the people that want it, and we can really help them, man. It's just bananas. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't care. Division I coach, man. There's all these NCAA coaches, and we can help them. And we're not trying to be like on an ivory tower. We're not trying to be anybody that we're not. Like, dude, we just are wrestling nerds. Freaking love it. I love talking technique. Like an offensive, defensive coordinator guy. Like that stuff's fun. It's so fun. That's what the P&L is great. We're gonna get to train. So we'll wrestle tournament Saturday and we'll train together on Sunday. It's like so awesome to get on the mat with all these dudes, and we're trying to provide an outlet for other people to do that around the country. The standard of wrestling in a Division I room, honestly, is not that high. It's crazy. It's the tip of the spear, but it's really not that high in terms of grappling or what is possible. And so just getting people to believe in the idea of like that there's a way to do it better than it's ever been done before is a whole crazy idea. But I think that's the right frame to have, the right mental space to be in if you really want to make progress. So we got on our hot button today, hardcore, because we keep having this conversation. There's coaches, parents, athletes that won't help. They need help. They know they need help, but they don't know that there's a better way. And so we today are just talking about some options, honestly, that are better, some ways to equip people and empower people. I hope that they'll listen to today's episode and gain some stuff from that. And if you get excited about the conversation, like lean in, DM us, hit us up on Instagram or whatever. It's hard to keep up with messages on TikTok. We get a lot of them, but man, DM us on Facebook, Instagram or something. Get in the comments. Like we'll find YouTube, whatever. We'll find you, or text us. Right. Get in touch with us. We'll get you connected with our team and some ways to get you plugged in. Okay. We have a lot of this stuff. It's available at ironcladmethods.com. We'll send you a link if you message us and talk about ways to get plugged in. But there's just so many things we can do. If a one-to-one conversation is important, if you're looking for something bigger for your program, like, hey, we've got some programs where we're helping the coaches, but then we're also giving access to the entire team instead of them going out one-to-one and getting monthly memberships. We have some crazy cool packages to make that insanely affordable, and ways to partner with you guys on that. And so if you're interested in some stuff like that, a Methods team package or anything, just hit us up. We'll get on a phone call. We honestly can't have a phone call with every single person, but we'll try. We'll certainly try. So I hope you guys find this and love it. And it prompts the next level of thinking for you as a athlete, as a coach, as a parent. And when you're ready for more, come find us because we've got so much more to give you.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Love it. Love it. MJ, today was awesome. Got excited. We'll do it again next week.
Let's do it.
Back at it. All right, man. Later. Let's get out.